Okay, I think we shall now start. I'm sure there will be more people joining as we move. But first of all, I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar. My name is Ana Rocha, and I am the Executive Director for NIPE Fagio. We are hosting a series of webinars every Wednesday at 3 p.m. East African time, and it has been a very fulfilling experience to be able to share so many experiences and knowledge with our speakers every week. Today, we have a very relevant theme, as we are going to talk about the connection between social justice and environment. I normally say that we cannot think about the environment without thinking about people. And so this webinar, in my opinion, is one of the most relevant ones. And without further delay, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Her name is Vanessa Pillay. She's with Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing, WIEGO. She's the program coordinator, Organization and Representation Program in Africa, based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Vanessa spent most of her adult life working life serving the South African labor movement, first as a shop steward in a white-collar union, and then as a worker educator. She joined the National Works Education Institute in South Africa in early 2000s until mid-2011. During this time, she focused on the value of building workers' power through active worker education programs, especially building women's leadership in patriarchal organizations. When she grew despondent with the trade union politics of the day, she went on to serve in the community as Center Director of Vocational Skills Training Center for Disadvantaged Youth. At WIEGO, she holds the position of Coordinator of the Organization and Representation Program in Africa. Her responsibilities include supporting membership-based organizations of workers in the informal economy to build and strengthen their organizations for greater visibility and a stronger collective voice to advocate for their worker rights. WIEGO works with local, national, regional, and global organizations of domestic workers, home-based workers, street vendors, and waste pickers. So, Vanessa, should I introduce Mantwa as well, or should I introduce her later? Now? Okay. So we also are very honored today because together with Vanessa, we have Mantwa Mokoena. She's a single mother of two who started her livelihood as a waste picker when her eldest son, now 34, was only 3 years old. Mantwa educated her son and helped put him through university on this income, an achievement that she's very proud of, and she should be. Mantwa has worked tirelessly to organize women on the Boichet landfill in Sasolburg, Free State Province, South Africa. She's a founding member of the Majakatata cooperative. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it properly. That was formed on the landfill, and their goal was to move off the dump and to be registered by the municipality so that they could collect recyclables from households and businesses under less strenuous and unsafe working conditions. 3 years ago, in December 2017, the cooperative finally reached its goals, and currently they're doing formal waste collection on the streets of Vanderbijl Park. Mantwa is a member of the South African Waste Pickers Association National Committee, a reference group member of the Waste Pickers Basadi Bwangi Women Speak Out program, and her main struggle is for the waste pickers to be taken seriously and the value of their work acknowledged. So it's a great pleasure to have both Vanessa and Mantwa here with us today. And without further delay, the floor is yours. You are on mute, Vanessa. You need to unmute yourself. And you as well, Mantwa.
Thank you, Anna, and to Nipe Fagio for the invitation for us to contribute to this very important conversation at this time. This is going to be a joint presentation between myself and Mantwa. We will share it. I will speak at the beginning just to give an overview of who are waste pickers, what is their contribution to the environment, economically and socially. Mantwa will then speak from her experience as a waste picker for the past 30 years. And then we would like to conclude our presentation with some suggestions of how cities could better integrate waste pickers into solid waste management systems. At the outset, we just want to state that municipal waste management systems are not only technical and about waste management. They are very much social, political, and economic systems that are created within a specific context. They are created out of specific histories and challenges. And of course, they are based on social relations within cities. And in our contexts across the continent mostly, but globally as well, most municipal waste management systems currently lock waste pickers who do a lot of the recycling, as we will try to demonstrate through this presentation. We find that municipal systems tend to lock waste pickers in the poverty cycle right at the bottom of the waste value chain due to inequalities in social relations. So who are these people? Who is this community that Mantwa represents here today? It's very difficult to have a good sense and an accurate sense of numbers, but on the Global REC website, there are 13 local and national organizations from across the region registered, representing more than 9,000 membership-based organizations, and waste pickers are organized in a variety of organizations, from associations to unions to cooperatives, as we'll hear from Mantwa later. But these workers are largely, although they operate very much in the public space, they are largely unrecognized in terms of policy and social inclusion, as well as policy inclusion, and they tend to be stigmatized for the work that they do. For those of us who speak and understand Kiswahili on this webinar, there are terms like chokora, which is a derogatory term for women, used to describe a woman waste picker. So social stigmatization is a huge challenge for waste pickers. Just want to move my video out of the way. In terms of their contributions, so the waste pickers collect, sort, and process material in our densely populated cities. And as urbanization increases in Africa, so our cities become more populated, so we generate more waste, and so the need for inclusive systems are there. However, most of the waste pickers do the sorting and processing of recyclable material, in very limited space. They usually don't have access to good space to do this very important work. Although they divert significant quantity of material from the waste stream, we know, and studies have shown, that recycling is one of the cheapest and fastest ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, the Tellus Institute study in 2008 found that recycling reduces emission 25 times more than incineration does. Yet we know in many of our cities, Privatized incineration is usually a system of choice, a technology of choice, and this displaces waste pickers around the world. These are workers forced into this work by social conditions, by economic need. We were just speaking before we started about the rising unemployment as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, but also more broadly due to economic instability. And so usually because of low barriers to entry, we find that the waste picker population grows almost daily. So waste picking or recycling is a service that provides livelihoods for millions of workers in the informal economy. I've included some examples here just to emphasize the point about the environmental contribution as well as the economic contribution. Recycling one glass bottle causes 20% less air pollution and 50% less water pollution than when a new bottle is made from raw materials. So you can see the direct correlation between saving of energy and preserving of virgin materials in recycling. 1 ton of cardboard collected and recycled saves 17 trees. The methods, because of the exclusion, the methods that informal waste pickers use for recycling tend to use very low energy. And so that further contributes to environmental sustainability. They also make a significant financial and economic contribution in that they save municipalities the cost of landfill airspace as well as transport associated with transferring material to landfills. Without municipal recycling systems, waste pickers are responsible for between 50 and 100% of recycling in most of our cities, because as we know, many cities do not have formal recycling systems. So what waste pickers do in terms of retrieving what gets dumped on the landfill or the dump site makes a significant contribution. I'll stop there and hand over to Mantwa to give us her reflections. Maybe just to emphasize again that Mantwa has been doing this work for over 30 years, as we've heard in the introduction. She worked at the Boitepi landfill in Vanderbijl Park for 28 years, and she's been working as a street collector now for the past 3 years. Her cooperative, Majagatata Cooperative, and I'd like Mantwa to explain what Majagatata means when she begins. She's the chairperson of that cooperative, and the cooperative was recognized by the National Department of Environmental Affairs in 2019. So the picture on the left is that certificate that the cooperative was awarded in.
Mantwa, you need to unmute yourself. I tried to send you a request from, here we go.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, my name is Mantwa Mokoena. I'm from Tepiso, Sharpeville, ex-Rianachen. Yes, I've worked at the landfill for past 8 years. Now, it wasn't easy to work at the landfill for first, but it keeps me going because I was putting food on the table for my kids and a single mother. Then it was nice, in other words. But I was working every day, hard working, but there's no money. There was no money that time. Prices were low, but it keeps me going. I educated my son. He did go to the university. Here, today I'm here now, working at the cooperative. But at the landfill, it wasn't easy because they were chasing us away each and every day. They were promising us to send the soldiers to us and dogs so that we can go out of the landfill, but we didn't. Then came the organization called, the NGO called Groundwork. Groundwork, Groundwork shows us the need to be in a organization in order to speak for ourselves. Then we go with Groundwork. They show us how to speak, how to speak for ourselves from this municipality that harass us every day. Now we are now here. We can speak for ourselves. If they say we must leave that place, we say no, we can't, because we are working here. You can't tell us to go away because we are working. Now I am working. The past 3 years, I'm here at Jakarta. I'm working with other women. We're 25 for first. Now we remain with 8 women, but we are working. We are working every day. We are hard-working women. The name Majakatata, it means you work hard before you eat. Now, you see, at the street, it's not easy because every second you are facing the trouble. Sometimes the cars, they knock you off and they run away. You see now. But we are still going on. It's not simple. First, people, they used to call us names. We are scavengers and all that. But now we are saying, you can't call us the scavengers. I'm not a scavenger, I'm a worker. And I hate it when somebody says to me, Akashe. I hate it because I am a worker, like everyone. The only thing that I want is that government must recognize us and make this work for this working environment to be I don't know what can I say. It must formalize our work. It must formalize our work so that we can work like other people. Because prices are low, people are coming to exploit us, the middlemen. Our prices must be regulated so that we can work better. We are women. We are women who are working hard, but they must know. They must know how to work with us. They mustn't take us from pillar to post if we want something from them. Now we are on a cooperative, but we struggle to find equipment and so on. I'll be happy if they can help me with equipment so that my work, it will be easier to work. Because now we are working for long hours. We are working with feet. Now our feet, oh.
We can still hear you, Mantwa. Oh dear.
Our feet is sore. We can't move.
Mantwa, are you still there? I think we might have lost Mantwa.
Yeah.
So
I think we lost the video, but it still seems like she's there. Maybe the connection is just unstable.
Okay, so I'll continue in the interest of time. So
Okay.
as we can hear hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I said I'll continue in the interest of time, and then we can hear how Mantwa is expressing the need and the struggle for formal recognition and inclusion. And we would like, these are just some images from the Dandora Dime site in Nairobi, from the Aboboshi e-waste dump, which is the biggest e-waste dump worldwide, where e-waste is dumped from all over the world. And it has had detrimental effect on the food chain. So not only are waste pickers exposed to hazardous waste in how they, in their collection, but also in the food that they consume. A study has been done of the levels of toxicity in the food, especially in eggs, which is one of the protein staples for working class and poor families. On the other side, we have some images of bulk collection by women in Cotonou, Benin, and at the bottom, recycling initiatives in Tunis. We would like to conclude our contribution to this conversation by making some suggestions of how cities could integrate waste pickers. This is our reality. The image on the far left, where it says keep separated, is a picture that I took in Nairobi about a year or two ago. This is a cardboard collector in the inner city of Durban in South Africa. And this is a waste picker at the end on the scooter, is the waste picker who uses his scooter to collect in the area where Mantwa actually lives. So within this reality, now at the bottom here, I have an image that was taken in Switzerland, where they containerize waste and the waste gets dropped in the container and it goes underground. Within this reality, the reality of the three images above and those in the previous slide, we are duty bound, I believe, to look at labor intensive methods and systems of waste management to facilitate social inclusion, as opposed to capital intensive technologies that we are importing from the global north. So our reality is not that containerized bin, but it's dense cities where informal workers are providing a critical environmental as well as a public service. Waste pickers therefore need to be recognized in their organizations and as counterparts or key stakeholders in the solid waste management systems of cities. And it has to be a true engagement on the levels of stakeholder engagement, and not in a condescending, derogatory way of engaging with waste, because which we often find in many cities as officials engage with waste speakers. Remember I said at the beginning, this is not only about waste management is a technical issue, but it's also about social relations and how they manifest. Another manifestation of this inequality is often punitive regulations that are passed by cities, by municipalities. And these regulations allow for practices that promote violence and harassment by authorities. So waste speakers will, as Mantwa was speaking about how they get chased away from where they work, that continues to this day. In the current context, we really need to look seriously at how we are going to rebuild our cities, our world, post the COVID-19 pandemic. And if nothing else, I'd like to make this proposal of the economic sense that it makes. On average, it costs $30 per ton to recycle trash, $50 to send it to the landfill, and between $65 and $75 to incinerate. Now, you can see it makes no economic sense to go for more expensive methods and technologies such as incineration and transferring to land and landfilling, as opposed to encouraging and funding recycling. In our context of an environmental and socio-economic crisis, which has been there even before the health crisis that we are now faced with, the savings that cities can make in terms of landfill and incineration costs could be applied to inclusive, socially responsible models of recycling. But as I've said before, then we have to consider those social relations, those unequal power relations, and there must be a political will as well as an enabling legislative policy framework environment for real socially inclusive recycling to take place. Because waste pickers provide essential environmental and public services, they must be put at the center of our waste minimization plans. For us in Africa, I believe that our goal with regards to waste management has to be economic, social, and environmental sustainability. And we cannot do it without the millions of informal workers who are already in the system but are largely ignored by the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. That's really inspiring. And I think one extra information to what you just said about the cost of recycling versus landfilling versus incineration is also important to remember the number of jobs that those three things generate. And so incineration would probably be generate one job, and landfilling like 3. Recycling can employ almost 100 people to do the same job, and so ensure the livelihoods of people are taken care of. So thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Mantwa. I think we lost you, Mantwa, but it was an honor to have you contributing to this discussion. Please, everyone, you are welcome to ask questions. So please type your questions in the chat box. You can see probably an icon for the chat on the bottom of your computer or your phone. And we are going to do our best to answer all the questions in the end. If in case we are not able to answer all the questions, then we are going to have the speakers answering those questions, and we can send the responses over email to everyone who participated. So please don't be shy and ask your questions. Without further delay, I would like to invite our second speaker. His name is Mwangala. He's the campaigns manager for Purpose Climate Lab. George brings together expertise in public mobilization, strategic communication, excellent lobbying skills, and a passion for climate justice and social change. George has more than 10 years of global experience in campaigning, lobbying for policy change, and movement building. He's enthusiastic about creatively engaging and motivating the public to raise their voices and take action for social change. Before joining Purpose, he worked at Christian Aid as a Big Shift campaign assistant for Africa region. Prior to Christian Aid, George worked at the Kenya Youth Climate Network, where he spearheaded We Have Faith Act now for Climate Justice cycling caravan from Mozambique to Nairobi, and the People's March in 2015 ahead of COP21. He has also been involved in countless global campaigns and advocacy activities designed to ensure a just world. George is a graduate of the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication and attended Stanmore, which I'm not able to pronounce. He's also an alumnus of Fred Korpsat and Communication for Change program. Without further delay, George, welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, Anna, and for inviting us. And also thanks to Mantwa and Vanessa for very good introduction and setting up, the pace for this conversation. And I think it comes at a very good time when we are seeing a lot of demand for social justice, environmental justice, and concerns globally, on what's happening across the world. And where I work at Purpose, we are in the business of developing, supporting, and building social movements to advance, an equitable and a just world. And one of the things we believe at Purpose is for us to be able to make change, we must know who has the power to help create the change we want to see. So as we walk around the world, as we work in our countries and our small regions we are, to create the change, to make the social change we want to see, we definitely need to be able to identify who holds the power. And I think my small presentation is just going to touch on how do we build movements? How do we identify social movements? How does it mean to work with the power? And here we mean power could be government, it could be people, gatekeepers in our communities. How do we ensure that we are moving with them? How do we get to know who they are? And how do we, ensure that we are working closely with them to ensure both social justice and environmental justice and connecting all these things together. One also very interesting thing at Purpose is we've tried to define, what is a social movement? What is a social justice movement? What is an environment justice movement? And we feel a social movement is a large-scale collective, of human activity, which the conversations that we've seen, what Mantwa is doing down in South Africa, that's a social movement. They're creating the change that we want to see. So the things all of us are doing, work that Nipe for Geo does, Nipe for Geo is in the business of creating social movement to advance, how do we create a just world? How do we ensure that there is environmental sustainability across Tanzania? And one of the characteristics we've seen, over the years for movements, social movements, has been there's definitely a shared identity and vision. And most of us, whether you work in government, whether you work for an NGO, whether you're a community mobilizer or you work in the West sector, there's definitely a vision you have and an identity that connects people together. There's an intention as well, to pursue a goal or agenda. It could be we want to clean, we want to reduce waste, we want to ensure that everyone lives best of their lives. We want to make sure that the world is just. And so there's also a characteristic of the grassroots. We see that all these movements are building from the grassroots, from the very small people, local communities, and just very small areas in our local. Relating back to the work Mantwa talked about, the work they've done, the organizing 25 women and moving back to number of them dropping, remaining with 8, but forming a cooperative. We see also there's a long-term engagement. So when you're developing a movement, when we are building these movements for a just world, we would want to see something long-term. It's not just working on things that are very embedded in the short term. For us to create movements also, what's exciting is there's always an action. These 2 points are very important, actions and campaigning. Like you have to be able to move with people. You have to be able to organize. You have to be able to identify who am I working with for you to create a movement. You must find allies, which is quite exciting that even on this call today, we are finding allies, finding how do we create change. It's an action we are taking now for us to be able to campaign for something, for a specific goal, for something long-term that we would definitely want to see. And this slide is very exciting for me. It's how Purpose looks at building movements, supporting movements, or working for social justice across the world. We look at first, number one, we look at purpose. What kind of change do we want to see and create in the world? How are we going to make this change we want to see? Is it, do we want to see a world that where we ensure that as we develop, we're also protecting the environment, or everyone has access to to food, everyone has access to medical care, everyone has access to education. There's also power. And I think this is also very interesting, because we need to identify who is this that has the power for us to make sure to shift structures around to ensure that there's a just world. We need to identify, a key pillar of the movement is who holds the power. And then perception. We all have perceptions around different things that we do. We all have perceptions and attitudes and opinions on different things. How do we influence the change of this in our community? Starting with me, with you, then looking at how does this perception influence the power? How does it influence the purpose you have? And participation, making sure that everyone is coming together and including, each other. And then what are the meaningful connections between your work and the social change and outcomes in the world? So if you want to see everyone access quality education, if you want to see everyone access quality healthcare, if you want to see a world where nothing goes to waste, how are you making the connection? Are you finding things that are exciting? Are you, making connections between how is, e-waste, damaging the food system? How is waste, causing flooding in cities? How is waste, causing health issues in cities? Making that kind of proof becomes a really good connecting point. And then you need definitely to figure out, as you make this connecting point, what are the social issues that are there? How do you connect them to different aspects of life for us to be able to buy in, the powerful people that we need, for us to be able to get the government buy-in? How do we move with the things that are happening within communities? At Purpose, we always believe that for you to create the change, you need to move with the needs and aspirations of the people that you are working with. You need to definitely be shifting perceptions and shifting how people view and look at things that, from home, to the city, to the different local, to national and global. And this diagram here, it's quite a good explanation on how do we ensure that our local community needs, values, and challenges we face, that, when you're fighting for social justice, when you're creating that movement to say, we want to champion for social justice, we want to connect social justice issues to the environment, how do we do it? The opportunity we have is when we have identified our local, issues in the community, what are our needs? We then need to move to finding out the power, who holds the power. In most cases, always government. And government starts from, the very local or the grassroots level, moving up to national and even the global stage. And so the opportunity we have is, we already know our local leaders. It can be a district commissioner, it can be a chief, it can be a village elder. How do we start sharing best practices with them and helping them learn community needs, creating solutions with them? As a movement, how do you ensure that as you champion, you're saying, this is what we would want to see, but you're helping those in power and leaders in power to identify, this is for sure the issue, the need, and this is the solution that the community wants to champion. And moving that further to finding allies at the national level and building the political cover they need, for them to speak about these issues. Could be a member of parliament that you can easily access. It could be regional commissioners that you can access. How do we ensure that we are shifting this narrative? It can be shifted through media, finding allies in media, finding allies in religion, finding allies in different aspects of business. And then how do you ensure that whatever is happening nationally as well, it's also reflected in the global agenda of global conversations? Because then we need social justice, not just within our areas, but cutting across all, aspects. And so how do we ensure that the desired change we need is collaborative and thinking global, sharing and acting, thinking global and acting local, so that we are sharing ideas from across the world right now on this call. But then how do you pick what we had discussing here and start acting on it locally, which is very important. And then all this is always building into the political cover we need for politicians who are mostly the gatekeepers and the people in power, to champion for environmental justice and for social justice in the things we do. What's also been very exciting is we need to identify who are the people we speak to, who are our audience. We've done a little bit of research at Purpose and classified a bit of, who are the people in the climate conversations and social justice conversations we need to be reaching out to. And generally, when you speak about social justice and how it relates to climate, we look at all of this boils down to how do we organize, how do we communicate, who is with you and who is against you. And for us to be able to connect social justice issues to the environment and to environmental justice, we definitely need to identify our audience and the people we work with or people who are against us. We are seeing there's a lot of environmental activists across the world. This call potentially has quite a lot of environmental activists. We've seen climate deniers, and right now we're seeing a lot of them emerging. Even on the global scene, you see different presidents of countries or different leaders globally denying there's no climate change. We know there's quite a lot of us who are also uninformed, but we don't oppose conversations on social justice. We don't oppose conversations on climate change. And then we have experts and scientists who are skeptics. They look at what does science say, or how, if we make sure that there's social justice, there's just system in the world, how will the economy work? Who will work for big companies or who will work for corporates? And then there is people who believe in tradition, deep-rooted in religion as well. And then there's image-conscious individuals. And we find mostly young people are very image conscious globally, and we want to see the change we want to create. And so for us to work with government, for us to help government identify the issues we want, we definitely must find out where do the different people we work with in government and outside, fall. And we must identify within this target audience, who within our areas are we going to work with. What's interesting as well for us to be able to get government buy-in in developing social movements is, we definitely need to work with the unmoved audience for us to win government, because the people who have the power are always the ones opposing how do we create social justice, how do we create environment justice. So we have to find a way to work with them closely for us to move with government and get government buy-in. But what is most important that I have learned over the years is we need to relate issues to what we see. So we can't speak about social justice unless you relate it to, the things you're seeing in your community. We can't speak about climate justice unless you speak about food security, unless you speak about flooding and how people are moving from one area to the other to, say, look for pasture because of drought. We can't speak about climate justice unless you speak about, health issues. We are now going through a pandemic. Is this pandemic related to any climate issues? We have seen the rise in malaria in a lot of our countries. Does it mean it's a cause of, climate change? So we have to connect issues, and be able to debunk all these issues to very small and tangible things within our communities. And also, as I finish, I would say, for us to say, I am running a movement, one thing we believe at Purpose as well, and I believe, is it can only be a movement if it moves without you. So as you create the movement, look at all the other aspects we've spoken about and ensure that you are moving with other people, you are organizing, you're getting buy-in, so that when you are not there and it's still moving, we know you definitely are creating and have a movement with you. Thank you very much, and look forward to engaging and the discussion further. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Very inspiring presentation. And I think one of the main things that we can get from that is that sometimes we are all individuals with the same goals and the same issues that we'd like to address. And by actually understanding that there are other people out there that think like we do, that would like to connect, that can have a different understanding of the situation, we get more powerful together than we are individually. And I think that's the movement building over there. So thank you very much. Once again, everyone, please feel free to ask your questions. You can type your questions on the chat box. It's probably, you see an icon on the bottom of your screen, and you can type your questions there, and we are going to do our best to answer all of them at the end. In case we can't answer all of them, we will answer them by email after the webinar. So I would like to, without further delay, call our third presenter today. Alan Kimambo is an engineer and social entrepreneur who has extensive experience in working for corporate organizations before joining his own co-funded company, WIEGO Recyclers. He's an award winner for Tony Melo Foundation, African Entrepreneurship Awards, HDIF COVID-19 Innovation Fund, and also mentioned in Advanced Media 2018 as top 100 most influential young Tanzanian. He's also a senior advisor to Zanarak Plastics Limited and a chairman for Tanzania Recyclers Association, TARA. He has passion for environment, and he's working towards improving the lives of waste pickers through Takania Jira initiative. Alan, the floor is yours. Karibu sana.
Yeah, Anna, thank you. And thank you for the presenters. That was a very good, contribution. And I'm sorry again, have an emergency meeting. And of course, the people who want to, for the meeting have already, arrived. But okay, I said I should, contribute a little bit about what I know. You have already, of course, introduced me. Of course, I learned a lot from what the waste speaker from South Africa was speaking about, and also the two presenters. Of course, that is really valid. Waste speakers need to be, formalized, need to be, recognized, so that their welfare and the, social life or social livelihood will be, improved. Yeah, so like I've been in the industry for the past 4 years now. So I understand most of the challenges which waste pickers are facing. And the most, of course, apart from recognition and the, formalization, all them working informal, the one thing which is affecting the industry, completely is about the market. Because, if the market is not controlled by, like, African countries, like if Tanzania, if the market is not controlled by, Tanzania, we need to export these materials, then we have no control over the prices, and the prices, keep changing every time. And, you're all aware that, when Chinese banned about, taking waste or importing waste from other countries like Europe, US, and the other countries, the industry, was really affected since, 2016, and the prices, started, going down, So the only country which was taking, these waste is mostly India and sometime, Vietnam, Malaysia, United Emirates, Arab, Egypt. But the market is not that much stable, many categories. And the most category which has been affected is, the plastic waste, which is the PET. It has been affected so much. And if you look at African countries, the most waste which is exported from Africa in terms of volume, it is PET, the plastic, bottles, because of the technology. In few countries, they have the technology to recycle PET in the country. And of course, the technology is also very expensive. operation is also quite expensive. So you don't find like in many countries, you know, even these recyclers going to this industry. So that being the case, that you cannot, you know, the price control is not within the country. However, we need to have this kind of you know, recognition and formalization, so that at least with the same price which is available in the market, there can be a fair price to the waste pickers. And this is very, very much important, and it's not, you know, it's not applicable to many countries, Tanzania being one of them. But also the other factor is a, you know, social factor, where, you know, waste pickers, they are termed so many, you know, words or so many names, like, you know, scavengers, drug addicts, or thieves, so many names. And you're all aware that these are the people who are clearly contributing to they are the backbone, you know, of the recycling industry in Africa, actually in the world. Without the waste pickers, the recycling industry is a nightmare, clearly. And so these are the things which need to be addressed by the this social movement, like, you know, Nipe Fagio, Tanzania Recyclers Association, and other social movements in Africa. And also the waste pickers are facing a very big challenge of health issue, because the areas they're working, like, you know, the landfill sites, the backyards of our houses, backyards of our offices, there are a lot of mixed waste. You find the hazardous waste, e-waste, some chemical waste, and the waste which they're not hazardous, they're mixed. So waste pickers need to now, the name scavenging now comes in, they need to now pick what is right and what is not right, so that they can go and sell to the market. But another thing which is very, very challenging, and I'm now facing, even for this meeting, is one of the area which I'm going to discuss about. You know, we are aggregator, where we, you know, collecting these waste from these waste pickers. But then you are told that these waste pickers, they must, you know, offer you the receipt, so that you can have a record of what, you know, they are selling. So you can find these waste pickers, most of them, they are informally, like, how can they now be that much formal in a manner that they can offer you receipt? They can now, so that's another big challenge. And you find working with them is also a very, it also can put you into you know, in obligations, which is really, you know, challenging. So I'm supporting the movement, whereby we need to formalize, we need to recognize these waste pickers, we need to change the narrative, so that we understand their contribution to the country, to the world, but also, you know, getting fair, you know, fair share of the price which is available in the market, but as well as making sure that there is a movement to promote their, you know, health and the welfare. So that's my contribution for now. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you, Alan. And I think we are all here in Tanzania, we're all a witness of how tirelessly Alan has been working to turn the recycling market into a more fair market and more inclusive one. So thank you very much for your work and for the presentation. We are now going to move to questions. We have a couple questions here to answer. I would like to start with a question asked by Pedro Leon to Mantwa, I believe. Was there a change in national or municipal regulations or policies that allowed the formal recognition of Majakerta Recycling Cooperative? Or does waste pickers' work remains unrecognized or even penalized in policies and regulations in South Africa? Mantwa, would you be able to answer this question? You are muted, so let me ask you to unmute.
Hello, Anna.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello. Okay. Can you repeat the question again? I didn't hear you clearly.
Yes. So Pedro Leon is asking.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so Pedro Leon is asking you if there was a change in national or municipal regulations or policy that allowed the formal recognition of the Majakerta Recycling Cooperative, or does waste pickers' work remains unrecognized or even penalized in policies and regulations in South Africa?
I don't
So basically, what he's asking is there a change after all the work that you have been doing for waste pickers recognition? Have you seen any improvement? Have you been able to see any policy changing, any laws changing, any improvement for recognition of waste pickers?
Yeah, I see the improvement, because now they can take you, they can give you a space to work on. But the change is not coming quickly. It's coming slow, there and there.
Yes,
Now I feel they must do more, because now we want to work. If you want to work, they take their time to help you. First, they take you from pillar to post, then you'll work. You'll work, instead of recognizing you, they'll take you from pillar to post. They will say to you, wait until MMC is coming, you see, those sort of things. But now the change is there, but not so much.
Yes, I think the changes are definitely very slow, and the people that are working deserve them to be faster. Thank you, Mantwa. Thank you for your response. George, there is a question here from Tumaini Kiwelo, and he's asking, is justice power? If yes, how justice affects our environment? What is the relation between justice and our environment?
I think I would look at it from, how do we define justice? I think it's, a lot of people have different definitions, but to me, I look at it from people having equitable access to resource, equitable access to, whatever thing that's happening. And so when it comes to justice and the environment, we look at when we degrade the environment, when we let, when we don't maybe handle climate change, what happens to us, as individuals? What happens to different vulnerable people in the community? An example is, if there are floods in an area, who do they affect heavily? Could be the people who are the poorest, who are heavily affected. If there is a disease that is out there, as a result or as an effect of climate change, who does it affect heavily? It's someone who probably doesn't have access to resources, can't access medical health care. If you do, that kind of person can't access a hospital, it means they die. So is that justice to them? We look at it from an aspect of food security. When there's drought and food prices have gone up, if you don't have money, you can't buy food, So it means you're going to either, you will die, or if you don't die, you will have a lot of lifestyle diseases. If you don't have lifestyle diseases, like you just, there are a lot of things you won't do because you're hungry. But someone who has money, who has access to resource, will be able to access food and buy at whatever price is there. So I think justice is a balance of looking at what's the connection, the human connection of environment to human connection of justice. So it depends with how you define it yourself.
Thank you, George. That's a very good point. And I think one of the things, I think all these subjects are very complex, and that's why dialogue is extremely important for people to be able to put their different perspectives on the table and come up to with solutions that are beneficial to a large number of people. So thank you. I think it's true that the definition of justice may change from one person to another. Vanessa, there is a question here from Muzi Kimweri. How do you think environmental justice differs in an upper class neighborhood versus a poverty-stricken area, if at all?
Is she saying how does it, the difference in the effect?
Yes, so how do you think the environmental justice will be different in an upper class neighborhood versus in an informal low-income neighborhood?
Well, in how we see policy at the moment, in terms of waste collection in most cities, it's often the reason that's been given for waste management in upper class or high income areas is that because those residents are paying for the services. And in low income areas, because of the poverty levels, communities cannot pay for waste management services. However, if you look at the level of the generation of waste, who generates the most waste? Therefore we say it's not only about waste management, but it's social. And as our communities are unequal, so the impact of services that are provided are unequally done so. And because low income communities don't have the resources to pay for those services, they tend to be most affected. So it's a sense of, and waste speakers will often make this example that in their communities, there are the services that they provide are not available to their own communities because they tend to come from poor communities. And so it's very much an economic issue as well. So waste pickers would then go outside of their poor communities to collect recyclables in the higher income areas because of how the market works. So higher value waste is being collected by people from poorer communities within higher income communities. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
Yes, I think that's a very good point, and I think it also relates not just between, like, it's not just for an upper class community and a low income community, but even a rich country and a developing country. And that's something that we see with the waste trade and how the generation levels may vary, but somehow the problems end up in the low income countries and communities, despite them not having the resources to manage them.
Can I just give an example, Anna? In Nairobi, for example, in the slum of Kibera, there are many informal waste pickers who collect from the estates around Kibera. They do door-to-door collection. And the way those waste pickers are charged by the Nairobi municipality for the waste, so the residual waste from after collecting the recyclables. The municipality charges the waste picker for where they dump the residual waste from what they have collected from households. Can you see how the systems are structured in a nonsensical way? So that the waste picker is then made to pay because now that the residual waste is considered to be of their generation and not the household from where they originally collected it. But because that is their income and because that is their livelihood, the waste pickers are willing to pay however many Kenyan shillings to be able to get rid of the residual waste and retrieve the recyclables to be sold.
Yes, that's highly discouraging. I wanted to ask Alan about the situation here in Tanzania, but I see that we lost him, unfortunately, because I think in Tanzania we also, with the lack of waste speaker organization here, waste speakers still don't have a strong voice to be able to be registered with government, recognized as essential workers, and therefore be able to perform their jobs without being hassled. I think that that's a situation, unfortunately, in most places. There is another question here, and that's to George, and that's about the climate deniers. So what can be done to convince climate deniers and expert skeptics of the environmental injustice and the climate emergence, George?
Yeah. I think mostly with climate deniers, those are people who already made up their mind. And so convincing them otherwise is not easy. And sometimes you might want to shift your energy to people you easily can, convince and let the climate deniers remain, be secluded. Once you build your base, you let the climate deniers remain secluded. And that's what we are seeing globally now. There's been a growing number of them, but there's also a growing number of people who are understanding, hey, there's climate change. So then the deniers are remaining in a small, small circle and easily being secluded. But then once you seclude them, they start thinking different and start looking at, what is it that's happening globally. When it comes to experts, skeptics, this is quite a new audience that climate groups have started identifying, and it's something at Papa's Climate Lab we are digging in deeper to understand how do you shift or convince them to change their perception. But we're seeing some of them are very young, others are old people, and who have lost trust in science. They're saying, you've told us 1, 2, 3 things about science, but it's not working. You've told us, we've seen in the news that this is happening, but sometimes it really doesn't happen. It's something that's created by either people in power, people who have the money, or people who are doing business. And conversations about capitalism come in and all that. But what's exciting about this group is they want to see lived experiences. So have you seen changes in the weather in your area? What does that mean to you? If you could predict when it was going to rain and now it doesn't, it means if you are a farmer, an expert skeptic who is a farmer, your produce has declined this year. So you start a conversation from why has it declined? Then, it's easy to start convincing them, hey, it could be climate change, or it could be, something in the weather that has changed. So what does that mean? Then you start, conversations with them about, don't deny climate change is real. How do we move steps ahead? So the expert skeptics are people who've just lost trust in science and news media. So they're not exactly climate deniers, but they have doubt. So it's how we convince them is we use lived experiences with them.
Yes, I think it's quite impressive that we need to convince people that science is correct about things in 2020. But it is our reality right now, unfortunately, and hopefully we'll be able to do a good job doing that. Mantwa, Charles mentions that waste speakers are stigmatized and seen as poor people in societies, and therefore that makes people have bad perceptions about them, not be able to formalize. It makes formalization of the work of waste speakers more difficult. And so he's asking, how can people be better educated and then remove those perceptions about the waste speakers and understand better the value of the work that they are providing?
I still believe, I still believe we can make the public awareness so that they can know what are we doing. We are not thieves. We are minimizing their waste. We don't steal anything. But you see, if you want to make the public, can I say? If you want to meet the residents, you must start first to the municipality. You can't go just and tell them what and what and what. They take you as a thief. They don't even want to talk to you. But if we can make the public awareness together with this municipality, I think everything can work. It can work clearly because now they know who is their municipality, and together with municipality we can do a better job.
Yes, I agree. And here in Tanzania, Nipefagio is about to actually launch a campaign in partnership with Purpose about the essential work that the way speakers do and did during the COVID-19, during the COVID-19, and how much we actually need to value the work being done and the service that they provide. I think also there is a lot of data available that shows how much waste recovery improves with an active group of waste speakers, an active movement of waste speakers in a country. And I think there is quite a bit that we can still talk and get people to understand the importance of that work. So I agree with you, Mantwa. I believe that we can still make it, hopefully.
Anna, could I please add?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand because now I have the co-host function. I think, as we said at the beginning of our presentation, that despite waste speakers doing a very public service, they are hidden. They're hidden in statistics, they're hidden in recognition, they're hidden in policy spaces. And it's highly stigmatized because of the dirt that they work with. Waste speakers will often say that we work with dirt. We are not the dirt that we work with. And because of the deep level of social stigmatization, there are many ways, because so if society doesn't value their contribution, how much less will they value themselves for the contribution that they are making? I mean, like, we can give examples of waste speakers who sometimes don't even want their own families to know what they are doing for a livelihood. So families who think that they're doing something else other than actually collection, because that work is so stigmatized. So it's incumbent upon cities to take into consideration this huge contribution that this workforce is making, both to the environment, social justice, economically, and to show that, to demonstrate that, and to value that. And if we were to invite into this conversation some subject matter expert, a scientist, for argument's sake, how would we all be sitting and relating to the scientist, as opposed to Mantwa, who's actually the subject matter expert because she works within it and she's been doing this for 30 years. So it's also social relations. It's how we as society more broadly value different people in society and their contribution. And the way speakers' contribution is there. As Anna says, it has to be quantified, but also socially valued. And it happens in other countries where waste speakers are actually paid by the local government, by municipality, for the public service that they provide.
Yes, and they should. And I think it's also important for us to remember, which is what we're going to cover in our campaign here, that the service that they provide puts them at risk in times of a pandemic. So they're very vulnerable to that pandemic because they are basically there collecting waste from everyone and touching different kinds of waste. And I think it's necessary and it's sad that we recognize the value that they bring to waste management in cities. and it's extremely important to do so. So with that note, I would like to ask a final question to all our speakers, which is if you could choose one thing to change in terms of social justice and environment post-COVID-19, what would that be? Whoever is ready can start.
I would change, the one thing that I would change is for waste pickers to be recognized as essential workers, for the essential service that they provide. And that became very clear during during lockdown in many countries as they were excluded, and also how vulnerable they were to contaminated material. So they are definitely, I would like, the one thing that I would want to see change post-COVID is, as I said, our goal in Africa must be to be socially, environmentally, and economically just in how we view, but also our policy and our practice must be aligned in identifying waste pickers as essential contributors and essential workers.
Thank you, Vanessa. George?
Vanessa has set the pace. I'm just wondering whether we will be able to to feel in the shoes she's already started. But I think I'd look at social inclusion, as a basic aspect of everything that happens in government. So if you are designing a project for education, for health, agriculture, finance, whichever department of government, social inclusion must be very explicit, and it must be seen as a basic need. So, because we've seen how COVID-19 has exposed a lot of, the gaps we have with social equity and a lot of inequality. So I definitely prefer or give a lot of emphasis and need on social inclusion in every aspects of governance, policy, from business to, institutions and everything.
That would definitely be a better world. Mantwa, if you could change one thing post-COVID-19, what would that be?
I will change. I still think people must be taught to separate waste, because now they are putting everything in one plastic. You see, if they can take their recyclables one side and the rubbish one side, it will be better for us.
That sounds like such a fair request, and also it should be such an easy thing for us to be able to implement, and somehow it's not. Here in Tanzania, we are implementing a zero waste model right now, a community-based zero waste model, decentralized and everything. And one of the things that I used to hear in the beginning is that low-income communities would never segregate their waste. They would never understand the importance of doing that, and they would never comply. And we did a pilot last year to see what is the percentage of the people that would actually accept to segregate their waste. And 86% of the people complied segregation at source. For me, that's huge encouragement and shows that the communities are actually ready to do segregation at source if they have a framework that shows them that doing that is valuable, and if they have a push from the government also putting things in place. So hopefully, Mantwa, here in Tanzania, we will have more communities segregating their waste, and then we'll be able to share with you a little bit of success in that, because I think that's a very, very, very fair and it should be, again, an easy thing for us to do. So with that, I would like to thank our speakers. It was an honor to have all of you Vanessa, Pillay, Mantwa, Joyce, George Mwangala, and also Alan Kimambo, who dropped and unfortunately is not here with us anymore. It was great to hear your experiences, to hear your advice on how we can basically make things better, and also to learn from you today. Thank you everyone who participated. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for joining us. I would like to remind everyone that NIPEFAG is doing a webinar series every Wednesday at 3 p.m. East African time. And our last webinar of this initial series is next week. Next week, we are actually going to have speakers talking about the COVID-19. So just recovery, the world that we want to build post-COVID-19 is the theme for next week. And we are hoping to exchange ideas and exchange experiences and set the theme because the COVID-19, the pandemic, makes life very difficult in so many places. And is also, at least I see this as an opportunity for our generation to actually go there and say we don't want things to be the way they have always been. And we want to make them better. So hopefully we can discuss that next week. Everyone is invited. We are going to share the recording of this webinar on your email. We are going to receive the link on Monday, and presentations will all be shared. A link to all the presentations from all webinars will be shared after the last webinar next week. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Thank you, our speakers, and it was a pleasure to have you here. Have a good evening, everyone, or morning, or night, depending on where you are. Thank you.
Thank you.